All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome to my Duskmourn House of Horror complete set review. My name's Jim Davis, pro Magic player and full-time content creator. First, with that follow button or like, comment, subscribe, support the content, folks. A lot of work goes into these, and I want to hear your feedback and your likes and your comments and everything. I'll be going over every single card in the set for constructed and limited. We already did white and blue. Those are on YouTube. Go watch them if you missed them. Check that out. And we're going to go through and give out our awards as we always do. And I want to remind you all, of course, next week, folks, for playing with the cards. 10 new brews for Duskmourn happening on Wednesday, the 18th, 2 p.m. 10 new standard decks, all the new cards on the early access event. I'm freaking pumped about it, and you should be too, because it's just a lot of fun. Honestly, that really is what it is. So let's get right to it. We got our black cards coming in, starting out with Appendage Amalgam. Horrifying. 3 mana for a 3/2 flash common. And for attacks, Surveil 1. That's it. That's the whole card. This card honestly seems kind of fine and limited. Like, 3/2 flash for 3 is not the most exciting thing of all time. But Surveilling is very good. And then Delirium is a big deal in black. Delirium is counting the number of types in your graveyard, trying to get 4 more. This is 2. It's an enchantment and a creature. So you like end step this, untap, attack with it, Surveil land in the graveyard, and they block and trade. Your 3 types of Delirium ready, which is pretty good, honestly. So I think this card looks like limited filler, but it's going to play a little better than it looks. So not a high pick by any means, but just like a really solid limited card. And, yeah, I'll say, honestly. Bale MC Leech is next. 2 mana for a 2/2. Has Eerie, and your opponent loses 1 life. Not the most exciting. This is more limited fillery. If this thing drained for 1, I would think I'd be all about it. But only losing 1 is kind of whatever. And honestly, blue-black Eerie is a little more about being controlling than being aggressive. So I think this card's just fine. It's obviously 2-drop. You play 2 drops in limited. A little bit of upside, but overall not that exciting. Cackling Slasher, another sort of ho-hum limited card. 4 mana for a 3/3 Death Touch. EDB with a counter on it if a creature died this turn. These sort of like 3/3 into a 4/4 drops tend to be pretty bad, because you have to hit the condition to make this card reasonable. If it's a 4/4 Death Touch for 4, that's pretty good, but it's not going to happen all the time. And the floor is pretty low. I think a 3/3 Death Touch for 3 is not particularly good, for 4 I mean. So limited filler, not really that exciting, honestly. Is what it is. It has Morbid technically too, but... Come Back Wrong, our first interesting card. 3 mana for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. If a creature card was put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control and sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So, kind of weird, right? We kill a thing at sorcery speed, so a little below rate there. And we get to have it and look at it for a little while, and then it goes away. Well, what if it has a really cool ETB effect? What if you kill an Atraxa? That's insane, right? I mean, obviously they already had an Atraxa, which is kind of rough. But what if you kill a haste creature? You can attack with it. That's kind of cool. So I think there is synergy to be had here. It's a pretty fun effect. Sorcery speed murder is pretty below the bar, but this can do some pretty cool stuff. You know, ETBs, death triggers, haste. You know, you have to work for it, but I think if you are working for it, this could be pretty cool. That being said, it's probably not a constructed card unless you're doing some really cool things with it. It's a great limited card, just because murder's fine and limited anyway, obviously. But very, very cool design. A little below the bar in power level, but fun card for sure. Commune with Evil. 2 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. 1 in your hand, the rest in the graveyard, you gain 3 lives. This is like almost like instant Delirium, right? You get to Impulse. You need to put a total of 4 cards into your graveyard, counting this also. Gain a little life to buy yourself some time, which is kind of cool. So, obviously, spending 3 mana on a card draw spell is kind of rough. So, the rate here isn't great as far as actual card draw, because spending turn 3 to draw a card, not affect the board, is kind of rough. But instant Delirium and 3 life is pretty cool. So, I think this card will play well in, like, slower black Delirium decks in limited. In constructed, you can't spend 3 mana on this effect, I don't think. It's not that hard to get Delirium constructed, you know? So, constructed, probably not. For limited, I think this card is kind of a cool build around if you are interested in that sort of thing. Cracked Skull. Very realistic art. 3 mana for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When it enters, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card, may they discard that card. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, destroy it. This is it's one of the beautiful things about Magic is this is a card I've never seen before. This is an effect where each individual effect you've seen a million times, right? So this is just coercion, and this is just whatever the damage kills a creature, death touch, whatever thing is. But putting them together is really interesting, because coercion's not really good enough. 2 mana for a Thoughtseize is pretty bad, right? And then any card that would make it so when a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage and would die is also not really good enough. But you put it together, and this is kind of sweet, right? So you get to target their 5/5, Thoughtseize them, and now you just act with your 2/2, and they block and trade. Cool. So you're not in a spot where you're losing card advantage, but you are affecting the board in an interesting way, and you're also Thoughtseizing, putting enchantment in the graveyard too, maybe. I don't think this card is particularly insane, but it's really, really cool. I just like the design of it a lot. I think it's playable and limited. Constructed, probably not good enough, but it's a cool card. Really, really cool design. I like it a lot. Cynical Loner. That's not me. I'm a positive guy. I like positive things. Why are you laughing at me? Don't laugh at me. 2 mana for a 3/1. Human Survivor. Survivor is the mechanic where if it is tapped in your second main phase, you get an effect, usually by attacking, but there are other ways to do it. Can't be blocked by Glimmers, which is important because there are the Glimmer 1/1 tokens in this set. And second main phase, if it's survived, you get to Entomb. Search library for a card, put it in your graveyard. Kind of cool. Cool in the black-white Reanimator decks in Limited, because there are obviously certain cards you want to get in the graveyard, and if it survives, kind of cool also. But I don't know. It seems fine. It's a fine Limited card for sure. The body's fine, obviously. Constructed, probably not good enough. We just need to do more than this for the cost. But cool Limited card. Cool, fun build around. And again, kind of what I was saying about the set being a sandbox. I feel like a lot of these cards in Limited are like very open-ended and cool. This could be good in a Reanimator deck, a Delirium deck, and various other things too. So, pretty sweet. Dashing Bloodsucker. 4 mana for a 2/5. Vampire Warrior with Eerie. Whenever enchantment ETBs or unlock a room, gets +2/+0 and gains lifelink till end of turn. So obviously a 4/5 lifelink is an absolute house in Limited. That would be unbelievably good. So if you can play an enchantment every turn with this card in play, you're there, and this card's excellent. But you got to get there, right? Because, if this is just a 2/5 for 4, it's really, really bad. So, cool card if you're playing like blue-black, enchantments and stuff. You got to do the things, but if you do, this card's pretty solid. I like it. This is a cool Limited card. A lot of big butts in this set. There's a lot of like high toughness creatures, possibly leaning towards a slower format, but we'll see. Demonic Consul.
It's a trap!
Folks, Demonic Tutor's great. But modern day Magic is a lot more tempo based than things were in Demonic, but when Demonic Tutor first came out. If Demonic Tutor was legal in Standard, just as is, the card that is restricted in Vintage, banned in Legacy, Demonic Tutor, I'm not even sure if it would even be that good. Like, what deck would want to play Demonic Tutor? Demonic Tutor is mostly a combo card, So, and I don't think that 2 mana Tutor for your best card is really worth it in such a tempo, the kind of tempo world that Magic is right now. So, obviously, whether Demonic Tutor is legal or not is neither here nor there. But Demonic Council is 2 mana for a sorcery. Search for a demon, put it in your hand. If you have Delirium, it's a Demonic Tutor. This costs a lot of extra stuff to try and make it a Demonic Tutor. And at that point, is it even good? I don't know. And the front side of Searching for a Demon is really, really bad. I think this card just sucks. Honestly, it's got cool art, it's got a cool theme, it's got a cool callback to Demonic Tutor. I guess it's cool in your commander deck or whatever, which is fine. But as far as 60 card formats go, I think this card is just basically unplayable, honestly. Which is, it's a thing, but I don't know. It is what it is. Trap card for black is Demonic Consul. Doomsday Excruciator. Black, 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 black. 6/6. 6 black symbols, 6/6. Demon. Flying. When it ETBs, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of her library face down. Beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. This is a wacky one, folks. So, obviously, decking is a real concern because you're drawing 2 cards a turn. So you will deck fairly quickly if it survives. And all you're really getting here is a 6/6 flyer for 6 that draws a card every turn, which is obviously like good, but not like wow, you know, that's just insane. So I don't know. If there's some sort of like crazy, you know, combo deck in older forms where you like reanimate this and like do some stuff, sure. But I don't know. You know, in limited, it's pretty scary because decking's a real concern. In constructed, if you're not doing broken things with it, it's kind of weird too. It's a little bit like, oh my god, the 6/6 oil counters, whatever, where after 4 turns you lose the game. Kind of similar to that, where it's like this big thing and you get a win, but like 6 black mana is a ridiculous mana cost. So I don't know. This card's weird. It's obviously a pretty powerful effect, but doesn't seem like it's that easy to utilize. It's also if it was cast too. I'm sorry, so not reanimate. I'm sorry. I apologize. I misread the card. If you reanimate it, you don't exile your library, but you do draw a card every turn. But even then, like, doesn't protect itself. It just a 6/6 that draws 2, which is worse than other big idiots. I don't know. Just bring back Atraxa, you know, whatever it is what it is. So, Excruciator's kind of a weird card. Don't play it unlimited. Unless you're going to reanimate it, I guess. But, I don't know. It's weird. I'm getting a headache looking at this card. Enduring Tenacity. This is the black Glimmer Enduring card. 4 mana for a 4/3. Whenever you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. And then whenever it dies, if it was a creature, it comes back as an enchantment, just like the other Enduring cards. This one's not very exciting. So the white one draws cards, and the blue one draws cards, and the black one is just a weird, like, life gain synergy piece, sort of. There is some life gain stuff happening in Standard with bats and so on and so forth, but these effects just aren't very good. So the buy's not great either. I think this one's kind of a miss. It's obviously a good limited card because it's just like, it's a 4/3 with some upside. But yeah, not very exciting. Fanatic of the Harrowing. I feel like I might regret this one, but I'm going a little deep here. I'm going to call this our Bombin Common for black. This is a 4 mana 2/2. ETB. Each player discards a card, your opponent and yourself. And if you discard a card this way, draw a card. So, all we have here is a card filtering decent size, bigger Ravenous Rat. It is a 4 mana 2/2. So, don't get me wrong. That is not a very good stat line for Modern Day Limited. But this just does a lot, right? This comes into play. If you care about cards in your graveyard at all, say your black-white Reanimator, or Delirium, or whatever else it might be, then you get to put a card in the graveyard, draw a card, and your opponent discards a card, which is pretty sweet. So that's a pretty awesome enabler for all the various things that are happening in the set. And the set has seemed a little slower. There's a lot of big butts in the set. Some pretty good rule spells too. So we'll see. It's possible. Like, you don't want to play this card in just any deck. But I think if you're playing, you know, graveyard stuff, Delirium, Reanimator, and so on and so forth, that's pretty powerful. I wish it was a 3/2. I think at a 3/2 this card would be insane. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going out on a limb here. But I like going out on a limb. All right. Yeah, I think that is true. With Manifest Red everywhere, a 2/3 would be great also. But the fact that they didn't make it a 3/2 or a 2/3 makes me think it played really well. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. That's my Bombin Common for black. Fanatic of the Harrowing. Obviously, Murder's better, but like, it's, you know, I think this is a more interesting card to discuss. So there you go. Bombin Common, Fanatic of the Harrowing for black. Moving on to Fear of Lost Teeth, which is an interesting fear to have. 1 black for a 1/1. Whenever it dies, drain for 1. I'm sorry, no, whenever it dies, 1 damage to any target, and you gain 1 life. This card's kind of cool, right? It's like a Mog Fanatic-y sort of card. There's a lot of sacrificing stuff in black-red, where like this is a cool thing to sacrifice. If you're a kill a thing with this, it's insane. It's cheap, a little bit of upside. It's an enchantment. It goes to the graveyard for Delirium. This card's cool. It's a cool card. Not a card I think you want to play on rate, but I think if you are doing cool things, this card's pretty sweet. I think Constructed, honestly, 1 mana cards that have value like this in Constructed are possibly playable for sure. So could see playing Constructed. Fear of a Dark. 5 mana for a 5/5. Whenever it attacks, a defending player controls no glimmers, it gains Menace and Death Touch. Just a filler, for the most part. 5/5 for 5. Common. Okay. maybe it gets Death Touch and whatever. Just fine. Just a fine limited card, nothing more. Wouldn't take it highly, but... Final Vengeance. That's it. There's only 2 fears in black. That's weird. Final Vengeance. 1 black, First Sorcery. Additional cost, sacrifice a creature or enchantment. Exile a creature. See this card all the time, but now we're sacrificing an enchantment or creature. Again, this card will play well in like black-red decks. The problem here is that there's no buyout. Some of these cards have like, you know, or spend 5 mana to do this, which is kind of cool. This can't buy out. It does exile, which is pretty sweet. But I think this is mostly a synergy removal spell. I would not play this in any limited deck. Constructed, I mean, this card, it's cheap enough where like, you could see playing Constructed for so much of good enchantments to come into play. And there are a number of good enchantments that ETB do a thing and kind of just sit there and rot. So this card does that too. So definitely a fringe player, Constructed. Good limited card if you're doing like that sort of thing. But card's cool. Give in to Violence. Ugh. 2 mana for an instant, +2/+2, lifelink. It's just a fine combat trick. Nothing crazy. Lifelink's pretty good. It's okay. It's fine. You know, is what it is. Grievous Wound. 5 mana, enchantment aura, enchant player. Our enchant players usually curses. Enchanted player can't gain life. Whenever enchanted player is dealt damage, they lose half their life rounded up. This card's pretty bad. I mean, this feels like a commander card through and through. 5 mana to, you know, maybe damage your opponent a bit, or they can't gain life. It's just a really weird card. It's not even a good hate card for life gain decks. It just costs so much mana. So yeah, this is mostly a limited card. I'm sorry, a commander card. For limited, even then, like, I don't think this is very good. It's just a win more kind of card, so whatever. Is what it is. Innocuous Rat. 2 mana for a 1/1. Whenever it dies, Manifest Dread. The card's fine. Cool sack card. Good thing to sacrifice to various effects. Manifesting Dread is better than a 2/2 by like a lot. So pretty good effect, you know, and we've seen cards like Doom Traveler before. Not Doom Traveler, whatever. The 1/1 that dies makes 2/2 zombie. And those are pretty fine. So, yeah, this card's good. Good common. I like it. I'm a fan. I'll be in Vegas for Worlds, yes. Killer's Mask. 2 mana for an artifact equipment. When it ETBs, Manifest Dread, and then put this on it. Has Menace. So we have 3 mana for a 2/2 Manifest Red Menace, equipped for 2. I think this card's pretty sketch. The flying one, flying is a lot more exciting than Menace, because flying is good on a bogged down board, or Menace is not, because they have a bunch of blockers. And again, this is an artifact that's never going to go to the graveyard. It doesn't really help with Delirium. Just feels like filler to me. I guess sacrificing the mask is kind of cool, but a lot of things to miss I care about sacrificing enchantments, not artifacts, so... Let's play a game! Someone's getting sued, right? Jeez. 4 mana for a sorcery. Delirium. Choose 1. If you have Delirium, choose 1 or more. Creatures your opponent's control get -1/-1 on a turn. Each opponent discards 2 cards. Each opponent loses 3 and you gain 3. This card's pretty bad. 4 mana for any of these effects is very, very bad. And then even if you go all the way to get Delirium, I don't even think that all of these together are that good either. So I think this card's just like pretty damn bad overall. Fine sideboard card, limited if you have a bunch of X1s or whatever, but yeah, it is very good. It is very good in Two-Headed Giant. That is true. Each opponent discards 2, each opponent loses 6 or whatever, but yeah, not a very exciting card. Leyline of the Void. It's got cool new art. We all know what this card does. It's been legal a million times. It's unplayable and limited. We're gonna move on. Live or Die. This is a cool limited card. 5 mana instant. Zombify or destroy target creature. Murder. That's cool. 5 mana for an instant speed reanimation spell is actually pretty fine, honestly, and limited. If you make a big thing, block with it, it's great. And then a buyout of just like kill a creature is also pretty sweet too. This card's great. I like this card a lot. This card is mostly being played for the reanimation effect, but buyout murder is pretty cool too. So like this card a lot. In standard, I think this card, I mean, there aren't that many better reanimation things. It's probably not good enough in standard, but great limited card. I cannot wait to draft Black White Reanimator. I'm very excited about it. Meat Hook Massacre strikes back. All right, here we go. One of the few cards banned in standard recently was Meat Hook Massacre number 1. We have black, 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 XX. That's the mana cost. Legendary enchantment. When Melee Massacre Strikes Back enters, each player sacrifices X creatures. Whenever a creature you control dies, you may pay 3 life. If you do, return it back to your control with a finality counter on it. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they may pay 3 life. If they don't, return it under your control with a finality counter on it. This feels like another commander card, honestly, where it's a really big, powerful effect that doesn't really do much till you spend 6 mana on it, and then you're spending 6 mana for an edict. And that's not very good. If you cast it for X equals 3 or 4, it's pretty impressive. It's obviously better in a multiplayer game because it kills multiple players' creatures. So, yeah, this is just a commander card. That's just it. In Limited, if you can cast it for X equals 2 in Limited, maybe it's fine. But, yeah, it's not very exciting, honestly. Miasma Demon. 6 mana for a 5/4 flyer. ETBs, you may discard any number of cards, and when you do, up to that many target creatures each get -2/-2. This card's wild, right? There are a lot of good big creatures in black and white in this set to make the limited archetype of Reanimator work. This is a really good one. You just like play this thing, discard 2 lands, kill 2 things, have a 5/4 flyer. Insane. Really, really good. Obviously great as a card you just cast too in your slower decks. 5/4 flyer kills things is great. Just a banger. Murder. This destroys target creature. That's what it does. It's a good rule spell. Don't play it constructed. Play it in limited. It's probably the best black common in limited, but it's a boring one, so I want to do something more fun than that. So, Nowhere to Run. We got a sleeper card here, folks. I like this card a lot, actually. It's mana for an enchantment with flash. EDB. Target creature gets -3/-3 line of turn. Cool. Creatures your opponents control can be targeted spells or abilities, so they do not have hexproof, and then ward abilities if these creatures do not trigger. So we have a -3/-3 for 2 instant. That's just like a fine card, right? And this thing has a lot more going on. So it's obviously good against ward, good against hexproof. It can kill things, which is cool. And then, more importantly, it just leaves an enchantment in play. So the enchantment just sits there, and you can sacrifice it to whatever you want for value, which is really, really cool. So I think this card's great. It's obviously a great limited card, but I think constructing this card could definitely have some legs. It just kills things and gives you great value for it too. And if it turns out that ward or hex is a big deal in this format, it's great there too. So I think people are going to really zero in on the ward or hexproof thing. That's just bonus text. It's not the important part of this card. The important part of this card is a enchantment removal you can bounce, which is super sweet. I can't even say that. Osseous Stick Twister? So for an artifact creature, Scarecrow at lifelink. Delirium. If you have Delirium, each opponent may sacrifice... Sorry, at the end of your end step, each opponent may sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. Then this deals damage equal to its power to each opponent who did not sacrifice a permanent... God, this is the most awkwardly worded card of all time. So basically, if you have Delirium in your end step, your opponent can take damage equal to this thing's power, or sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So, and of course it has lifelink as well, so it's kind of cool. So, if you have Delirium, end step, Punisher, take damage, or sacrifice the thing. This card's great. It's a phenomenal limited card, right? 2/2 lifelink for 2 is already awesome. It's 2 types. Every enchantment creature and artifact creature in the set gets a natural boost for helping with Delirium, which is great. And yeah, it's a great limited card. I mean, if this was just a 2/2 lifelink for 2, artifact creature would be awesome. And the Delirium is upside too. It's great. Card's awesome. Constructed, probably not, but... Overlord of the Bale Merc. We're going best in show. I think all these Overlords are really, really good. This one is like the least impressive to look at, but I think it'll play as one of the best. Overlord of the Bale Merc is a 5 mana 5/5. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, mill 4, then return a non-avatar creature or planeswalker from graveyard to your hand. Okay? Has impending 5. So, of course, all of these Overlords have impending. It's a new mechanic only on these cards where you spend the cost of 2. You put it into play as an enchantment. It's not a creature. And then at end step, remove a counter. Once all the counters are gone, it's a creature again. This is sort of like a split card of like Satyr Wayfinder. That's also a big threat later, right? So turn 2, You spend 2 mana, mill some cards, get a card back, get your Delirium going, get your graveyard things going, and so on and so forth. And the impending cost is really cheap here, because the biggest downside of impending is that you're spending a cost and you're not affecting the board. The white Overlord is great, because when you impending it, you get 2/2/1 flyers. Awesome. You're affecting the board. That's great. Other ones that don't affect the board are like, well, can I afford to spend 3 or 4 mana and just not do anything this turn? So 2 mana is a more of a setup turn than like a affect the board kind of turn. You can afford to spend 2 mana and not affect the board, which is kind of cool. Also, it's triggers up the Beanstalk. It's an enchantment for your Delirium stuff as well. And then 5 turns later, or on turn, turn 6 or whatever, turn 7, all of a sudden they just have this 5/5. It's popping out of nowhere, which is cool too. So, and then casting it for 5 is also reasonable too. So I think this card is sneakily really awesome. And I think it does a lot of cool things. I think it's cool on both sides of the ball. It's obviously a great limited card, just all upside all the way. It's a big mythic or whatever. But yeah, this card's sweet. I like it a lot. I think it's just a really cool build around. It's cheap, and cheap is good, and a lot of cool synergy stuff too. So best in show for black is Overlord of the Bale Merc. Next up is Popular Egotist. 2 mana for a 3/2 uncommon human rogue. 2 mana, sacrifice other creature or enchantment. Popular Egotist gains indestructible at the end of turn, and then tap it. So, and then also, whenever you sacrifice permanent, drain for 1. Card's great. So, of course, the black and red mechanic in limited is all about sacrificing things and for value. So we see things that come into play and do stuff. You sacrifice them later, and draining is great. This thing can save itself in combat, which is great too. Just a great limited card. Obviously, you want to have creatures or enchantments sacrifice for this, but if you do, this card is excellent. So great limited card. Resurrected Cultist. 3 mana for a 4/1 human cleric. If you have Delirium, you can spend 4 mana to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. That's kind of cool, honestly, right? It's kind of like a fillery card. Like a 4/1 for 3 is not great, but you do it twice, it's kind of cool. This card's fine. It's okay. Not obviously, you can only play this in your draft deck if you are hardcore Delirium, and you won't take it high ever, but it's playable, I think. It is cool with self-mill also, where you can like self-mill this Manifest Dread and bring it back without having to cast it, which is cool too. So it's a cool card. Cool fun build around, limited, nothing crazy. Spectral Snatcher. This is the black land cycler. 6 mana for a 6/5 war, discard a card, swamp cycling. Again, the black and white land cyclers get a little bit of a boost because black-white, it's all about reanimation. Card's good though. Spine card to cast. The ward's kind of nice. And then good to reanimate too. Seems great. Good limited card. Sporogenic Infection. 2 mana for an enchantment. Aura. Enchant creature. When it ETBs, target player sacrifices a creature other than Enchanted Creature. Whenever the Enchanted Creature is dealt damage, destroy it. This card's kind of cool, honestly. This is the rare edict where you get to choose you get to choose their worst creature, so they can't sack that, which is kind of cool. And it's also an enchantment that sits in play that you can sack for value, which is kind of cool too. So, cool card. Edicts often aren't great in limited, but I think this does enough where it's probably good enough. Although I'd probably want to play this in like a sacrificey, like sack enchant for value kind of deck. But still, cool card, fun design. Probably not playable in anything else, but it's cool. Unstoppable Slasher. 3 mana for a 2/3 rare zombie assassin with Death Touch. Whenever it does combat damage to a player, it moves half their life rounded up. Whenever it dies, if it had no counters on it, return to the battlefield tapped on its owner's control with 2 stun counters on it. I wanted to call this card my trap card. I really, really did. I think folks are pretty high on this card, and I just don't think it's that good. It's obviously an annoying card where it will come back in theory if it's not exiled or whatever. But realistically, it's kind of small. It's, somewhat aggressive, but modern day Magic is the kind of card where like 15 years ago, this card would be insane. Like, because cards were so bad back then that like, it would just come back over and over and over again. You run out of things to do. However, modern day Magic, you just never run out of cards. You just kill it. All right, it's stunned, whatever. Well, it's stunned for 2 turns, I'm just gonna kill you, or whatever else it might be. So, I don't know. I just don't I struggle to see what deck would want this card also. It's like not really an aggro card. It's not really a mid-rangey card. Kind of a mid-rangey card, I guess, maybe. But I don't know. So, constructed-wise, I think this card's playable. But I think it's going to play a lot worse than it looks. And then I think that in Limited, it's insane, obviously. But overall, there are a lot of really good 3-drops in Standard right now. And this is competing with literally all of them. And I don't think it lines up that well. So we'll see, obviously. You can do cute things with it. Give it evasion in some way. Sacrifice it or whatever. It's kind of cool. You cannot infinite sacrifice this because the stun counter counts as the counter. So you need some way to remove the stun counters and then sacrifice it. But yeah, it's a cute card. It's a cool card. I just don't think it's going to play as well as it looks. So that's me. Great limited card, though, obviously. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. But Vagalof's Faithful. 1 mana for a 1/1 human cleric. Pay 4, sack it, reanimate, only as a sorcery. 4 mana reanimation returns to standard. We haven't seen a 4 mana conditionless reanimation spell in a long time. This does that. Obviously, they can kill it before you can use it, but it's kind of cool. Honestly, cool little guy. Maybe more of a limited card as far as being a cool reanimation card. It's not good enough for standard, but cool. Again, there's a ridiculous amount of support for the black-white reanimator archetype in limited, and this is one more of those things. So if you're doing that, it's a really cool thing, and yeah, it's cool. Vagalov Proper Terror Eater. I kind of hate this card. Like, I feel like they just try and make the dumbest big thing they can every few years or whatever, and this is like one of the stupidest things you can put into play on turn like 1 or 2, if you're playing a broken reanimator deck, or even just later in the game. 9 mana for a 9/9 flying lifelink. Has ward, sack 3 non-land permanents. So basically hexproof earlier in the game. And then even if you do kill it later in the game, it's just ridiculous. If a card you didn't control, we put into a graveyard from anywhere, opponent's graveyard, exile it. And then during your turn, you may play cards exiled with this for mana of any color. Obviously, this card's never getting cast. If you can reanimate this, it's pretty insane. It does compete with... I'm sorry. I misspoke. You cast a spell with life rather than mana, which is insane. So your opponent casts spells. You can play them yourself for mana, life, not mana. That's pretty wild. But yeah. So like, it does compete with Atraxa in Standard, one of the other best big idiots of all time. But as far as like things to reanimate, it's pretty stupid. It's good. Obviously insane in limited because like reanimation is a totally easy thing to do in limited. So yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's like it's so funny that like a card like this is so annoying because like it's probably not better than Atraxa, but it's just like stupid. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base, whatever. But yeah, it's obviously insanely powerful. It's really powerful in old formats where you can just turn to reanimate this because like they don't have the ward, yada yada yada. But yeah, I don't know. It's really, really powerful. I look forward to opening it in Bronze Mythic and reanimating it in Limited. I think this card's pretty good in Limited because like if you're black-white reanimators, very easy to get in play. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's obviously busted. Just like can you get it into play or not? Vile Mutilator, sorry. 7 mana for a 6/5. Additional cost to cast this spell, sack creature or enchantment. 6/5 flying trample. Whenever it ETBs, each opponent sacrifices a non-token enchantment, and then sacrifices a non-token creature. Another big reanimation target for black-white. And that's just, basically what it's doing. Obviously, you can cast it, but this is 7 mana is a lot, and the cost is kind of rough too. So this is just, big dumb card to put in the graveyard and reanimate in limited with your black-white deck. It's very, very powerful at that job. But it's a little more limited in scope than some of the other ones. Winter's Intervention. 2 mana instant. 2 damage to a creature. Gain 2 life. Worse than, -2/-2. Gain 2 life. Because it can't be used as a combat trick. So this card's a little less exciting in that respect. But it's fine. It's a fine kill spell for limited. If you're playing a black deck trying to slow the game down. If you want an instant. Is what it is. And then we come to one of the more derisive cards in the entire set. Withering Torment. 3 mana instant. Destroy target creature or enchantment, you lose 2 life. That's right. Black can now kill Karma super cleanly. There was Feed the Swarm. It was a sorcery. It was kind of clunky and stuff. This is really, really clean. Chat's getting mad about the color pie. I think that this is like kind of fine color pie wise. Having black be the 3rd best enchantment removal color is interesting. You're paying life to do it, so like it's kind of flavorful in that regard. This is gonna see play in standard. I mean, there are a lot of good enchantments, and then there are also spots in older formats where like a black deck might need to kill an enchantment. So I think this is fine. I think this card it's good enough where you're fine playing it. It's like a lot better than Feed the Swarm, that's for sure. And then you know, black decks just need to kill things sometimes. You know, they have an enchantment you can't beat, whatever it might be, solitary confinement, yada yada yada. You know, now you can do that. And yeah, so is it great? No. Does it do a unique thing? Yes. Is it a good limited card? Yeah, it's fine. It's probably on par with Murder. But yeah, so there you go. I don't know. People are going nuts. People are going crazy over it. Just going wild. Yeah, that's Withering Torment. So, is it better than Murder Constructed? Yeah, I think so, for sure. The flexibility is excellent. It's not a card you'd main deck unless it was a certain metagame, but it's a good sideboard card. This is fun. Then we have our black rooms. Again, the rooms are enchantments that are split cards where you can play one or the other half. Then, once they're in play, whatever half you haven't cast yet is not active. And you can basically cast it from the battlefield as a sorcery, which counts as unlocking the room. So, we have Defiled Crypt and Cadaver Lab here. Defiled Crypt is 4 mana for a room, obviously. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, make a 2/2 black horror token. Only once turn, so similar to Insidious Roots. And then Cadaver Lab is 1 black, Raise Dead. So it's like an okay limited card. It plays well together, obviously, where you can play the Defiled Crypt, then do the Lab, make a 2/2, get a creature back. That being said, you'd want a lot of ways to make cards leave your graveyards, which is not a common thing in limited, and it's not costed. It's not costed very well for constructed, so this feels like a fringe limited card to me. It's okay. Next up is Derelic Addict and Widow's Walk. The Addict is 3 mana for a enchantment. Whenever you unlock this door, you draw 2 and lose 2. So 3 mana Nice Whisper, not very good. And the Widow's Walk is whenever a creature you control attacks alone, plus a so and gains death touch till end of turn. I think this card's pretty bad. Both sides are not great. You know, the Read the Bones effect is just not very good in limited. Because losing life sucks. And then I think if the Widow's Walk gave lifelink, it would be awesome and really, really cool. It's like a way to like synergize both halves of the card, but it doesn't. So I don't think it's very good. So yeah, kind of a stinker, honestly. Funeral Room and Awakening Call is the mythic room for black. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. So a 3 mana Blood Artist. And then Awakening Call is 8 mana. Return all creature cards from your card to the battlefield. So, I think this card, if Funeral Room costs 2, I'd be all about this card. But as it stands, I don't think that Blood Artist Enchantment is worth 3 mana. And 8 mana to return all your creatures from the graveyard is just a heinous amount of mana, honestly. And there's so much can go wrong with it. You know, we saw Funeral Room before as Bastion of Remembrance back in Ikoria, where it was the same card, but you also got a 1/1 token too. Which is huge, honestly, for your like tokeny deck. So I think this card is kind of bad on both sides and not very impactful. It's a good limited card because obviously it's just 8 mana win the game, and then the front side's fine too. But yeah, I don't know overall. You know, thinking of it as an adventure, like a Funeral Room adventure, Awakening Hall backside. I don't know. Still think it's that good. And our last black card is Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber. Unholy Annex, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Otherwise, you lose 2 life. It's kind of like Phyrexian Arena-esque. And then Ritual Chamber is 5 mana. If you unlock this door, make a 6/6 demon with flying. So, obviously, these two halves do play well together. Yeah, this card's pretty good. You know, probably not good enough for constructed, unless you have a lot of cheap demons somehow. But great limited card. Make a 6/6, draw some cards. Yeah, it's cool. It's good, cool. I didn't count the demons in the set, but there's some, but I don't know how many there are, but, you know, check it out. So to recap, our best in show for black is Overlord of the Bale. Our sleeper card is Nowhere to Run. Our Bombin Common is Fanatic of the Harrowing. And then our trap card is Demonic Council. Red's coming up, folks. You folks love you. Like, comment, subscribe, support the content, obviously. And I appreciate your support. Let me know what you think in the comments. Red's coming up.